Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Mitten Backstage. Hope you're doing well. This week, we have Muskegon drummer Mike Schertenlieb. Many of you know him in bands like Flexadecibel, where he brings the funk, brings the hang, and is a great all-around person to know in the West Michigan music scene. If you enjoyed today's episode, you can support podcasts like these by going to patreon.com/Dr. Snedeker. There you can contribute at different tier levels to get early access to podcast episodes, discounted merch, a monthly mailed newsletter with the Sticker of the Month Club, and the ability to hire me for instruction, consultation, or recording services as a studio musician. You can also head over to DrSnedeker.com to see everything that I'm up to all around the internet. So thanks again, and if you enjoyed today's episode, you can also share it with someone who you think would enjoy the types of conversations I'm having with musicians in the Michigan music scene. All right, let's get into today's episode with Mike Schertenlieb. It works really well.
Always that equipment shuffle, man. Always.
Yeah. I was just actually in Muskegon, and I was thinking about just all the Muskegon folks because it felt like a minute since I had been there. So how's everybody doing?
We're okay. Other than it's the same as it has been, really, right? That's weird. I honestly don't see very many people beyond my bandmates. And everybody's doing pretty okay.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
As far as they've told me. Yeah.
That's about all you can ask for, I guess.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Pretty okay though, and just trying to make music and survive.
Right. Well, and I was there because I did that Earth Radio, like we played
for Anastasia's birthday, right?
Yeah, for Anastasia's birthday, and that was fun. And then I was just there this week to talk with Matt Schmidt, who works over at the arena.
Oh, okay.
With the soccer team, I guess. And
sure.
They're looking to I think I had mentioned this to you months ago. There's we were figuring out, like, okay, what does a stage look like with what's on the arena, what equipment is set up, what right. They had some cabling, and I'm like, where does this cabling go? Because if it goes up to the main board, then it's going to be really easy. If it's not, then we have to figure out another way to send audio to the house PA or something.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I'm liking what they're trying to do with they want people to see it as a place like, oh, okay, we already got drinks, there's a game going on, we can take those drinks into the arena. Mm-hmm. Or oh, we're at the taco spot, we can watch the game from the taco place, or
it does seem like and whether that's some of the arena people or I can't remember the exact name, but there's a downtown development authority or some Snack Pack actually works with them sometimes. But
okay,
it seems like a lot of those people are they're really trying to figure out ways to make all that whole region kind of feel like one place.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's less about, oh, we're gonna go to Rad Dads or we're gonna go to 18th Amendment. They've done some of this social district in the spring and summer where you get a marked cup, and it's a little bit like Vegas, New Orleans style where you can walk in and out of places. And they're and same with doing music at the arena and connecting all, which is cool.
Yeah, I just liked that there was some willingness to be hey, you're the expert, help us figure this out, instead of I'm always up for that, and we both figure stuff out as we go, rather than like a business sink a bunch of money and then
Yeah.
someone doesn't realize you have to like, oh, there's cabling, or there's, there's not an adequate internet. You can't do live streaming, or
Right. Or you show up after the fact, you're like, oh, you built all this infrastructure the wrong way.
it's all uncomfortable and it's hard to load in.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm always for like, you know, if a business is going to do music, having someone who
Totally.
does it all the time, just be like,
Totally.
here's what we don't like and here's what we like, so find
Yep.
whatever works in your price range.
And that just always, that to me, that always just shows like the difference between places that want to hire entertainment and like make it a positive experience for everybody, as opposed to like, oh yeah, whatever, your band can play in the corner.
Yeah, you can.
And they don't really care, and they're not going to tell you where to load in. They're not worried about where power is, any of that kind of stuff. Like,
no, it's like all the little. It's always the little things. Like, it's never like, in their head they're like, we're gonna have a show, and then they have like, like Kiss at a giant arena rock show, like that's what we're doing, and it's like,
Right.
no.
Right.
We need extension cords and surge protectors and monitors and
It's just always nice when, exactly as you're saying, when people either have kind of a working knowledge of that or are willing to be like, hey, you make a lot of music, what do you need for us to make this good?
Yeah. And I was glad too to emphasize the fact that, because the question came up like, okay, should we have bands bring their like everything, or like should the arena provide stuff? And I'm like, well, like if bands are bringing their own stuff, it's not going to be the same experience. But if you invest in the equipment and the staffing, then that's going to keep it more consistent and easy to have any sort of band walk in and do something.
Yep. And just all the difference it makes in, like you said, consistency, and oh, every band needs to bring a PA. Well, load-in time is now an hour earlier.
Yeah.
Or whatever. All of that, like, or people are going to charge more if they have to bring a PA.
Yep. Yeah. It's like it's like spending that money on equipment that they think, oh, I have to spend that much on gear, and it's like, yeah, but if you spend that, then musicians aren't going to want to, like they're not going to be as frustrated like coming to your venue. It's like the least the easiest way to get like from your car to set up on stage is like, I feel like most of the reason why I try to figure out places to play is just
right. It's like the sheer convenience.
Yeah. It's like, oh, there's like these listening room gigs. It's like, oh, there's a Steinway. I don't need to bring a piano. I'll play.
Right. You can just walk in like with your hands.
Yeah. Just like bring a backpack and then, that's it.
Yep.
But
every once in a while, encounter places with like good house gear. And that's always awesome, but it's rare.
Yeah, GR Noir actually invested in terms of a kit. They got was it Canopus?
Okay,
Canopus?
Nice.
Yeah. So that's been nice for, I played there recently with Madison, and he he didn't even like, usually he swaps the snares. He didn't even swap the snare that time. He's like, I'm just gonna like play this kit as is because it's still pretty new, and it was sounding great.
Those are nice kits.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's nice too when there's like house equipment, because the same thing with the Steinway, like it's good house equipment, but then, just the little things for upkeep with the putting water in the humidifier and making sure that like everything's, kept nice, instead of just being like, it's a piano, I don't need to touch it. It's like
right. There's, oh my god, the number of memes around in like the various like drummer type pages that are like, oh yeah, no problem, we got a house kit, just bring your cymbals, and it's some photo of like some flood damaged, destroyed, smashed up drum set or whatever.
Just holes in the bottom. And yeah, I remember trying to buy it. Just you know, you never know who you're going to find on Craigslist. And there's this
Yeah.
dude who, judging by he lived in like this trailer home, and I've known people and stayed
Sure.
overnights at trailer homes, and they're fine. But this
Right.
dude, just the amount of like, because he was like also trying to sell me other stuff when I was picking up this like super beat up damaged like drum kit for like under $100. It was like, do you want any? He had like 30 like leather like shoulder bags and like a stack of like stuffed animals, and like I'm just like, this is not what I
Yeah.
I would want to be in.
Yeah. You found like a trailer park pawn shop.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't need. He's like, do you need this? Like, he was trying to. I think he tried to sell me like, like piping, and like, do you need it? You need any sink repair? I got some piping.
Like, no, man, just the drums.
Yeah, I'm literally just here to pick up.
Weird. People are so strange. I'm too warm. I got to lose this hoodie.
Oh yeah. But
oh, that is much better.
Yeah. I was feeling that like yesterday was pretty cold, but I've been seeing, just with the warmer weather, like these residencies have kind of given me a way to like gauge how, like, what is the vibe of the public.
Oh, interesting.
And just to see like, okay, it's nice weather. Are people out? Are people staying mostly outside? Are people comfortable with like, the listening room is still at quarter capacity, because half capacity would be back to the normal seating and they couldn't do the dining space.
Sure.
So it's like, not a ton of tables and like 3 booths. And it still feels like, it's intimate, but there's enough people spread out where it feels like, oh, I'm dining, and I'm, I have plenty of distance between
Right.
people.
That's good, man. That's really good. I've been wanting to come check some of those out. They do like reservations, right?
Yeah, they do them through, because the listening room is kind of acting as an extension of the dining room of 123, the restaurant
Okay.
that's like right beneath it. And they take reservations. They also do walk-ups, but it seems like at least the last couple of weeks it's been like, between 6 and 7 it's pretty slow, and then 7 o'clock is when a bunch of reservations start hitting.
I see.
So I've had a couple times where like Hannah Schroeder will come out with like, with people, and they don't have a reservation, and they get in for a second, but then a reservation kind of boots them out of a table.
Right.
So it's like, you can do a walk up, but it's
well, if I'm gonna make a 45-minute trip,
yeah,
the reservation.
That's true.
Like, oh, I drove here. Never mind.
Yeah, guess I'm nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of up in the air. Like, we're playing this week, and we have for sure 2 more weekends after this weekend.
Okay.
May is kind of up in the air of like, because I got into it kind of knowing like, okay, as things open up, as people get more vaccines, the listening room's going to focus on the listening lawn concerts,
right,
in the summer. And May is kind of that month of like, okay, do they keep doing it and then transition, like, because they could just set up stuff outside, and
right,
that's separate from the indoor venue. But yeah, so I'm like, I'm seeing if I get another couple weeks or a month of these shows, but we'll see.
Yeah, only time will tell, man. That's just kind of the nature of everything right now, really.
Yeah, I don't know if like with all the groups you play in, if anyone's like, even trying to book events, if they're, I don't know if it's like an issue of, oh, we don't really want to book a ton of events traveling, let's book stuff around the area, or if it's still like, we have, each band member is their own universe of like, we got to make sure they're okay booking a show somewhere.
It's kind of all the above, man. Like we've got a few, like Flex has a couple of things kind of loosely on deck for summertime that haven't been really announced yet. And we're trying to keep it pretty like at most 1 or 2 a month, you know, not doing what we've done in years past where it's like 3 every weekend all summer long or whatever. And otherwise that's about it. I may yet do some like some cover kind of stuff or whatever as that crops up, but none of my other really groups are booking anything. We may, and like with short hair, the kind of punk band, that's like the places to play are pretty limited and tend to be small, like tight, packed, crowded. You know, it's like playing at Tip Top.
Yeah.
Where the closest, you know, the stage is this big and the person next to it is 6 inches away from you.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of see how that stuff unfolds. I don't think anybody's like obviously everybody wants to play, everybody misses gigging, but I don't get any sense from any of my kind of teammates that they're like, screw it, we gotta play.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think anybody's being reckless or anything like that, you know, as much as we do want to play.
Right. Yeah. And I think one thing that, you know, with Earth Radio that's been interesting is just kind of gauging like what types of gigs we want to take. You know, most of the stuff we have booked, I don't think we have any indoor stuff. It's all, you know, a concert series or a, you know, we just announced today, well, I still need to post about it, but there's I like, you know, like 5 minutes before I got on the call, Mark Lavengood, who's like part of the I guess he's like a producer or like just part of the team that put this festival on near his where he's living in Trufant, Michigan. It's like near yeah, it's like near Coral, another adjacent like farming area. But they just announced this Smiling Acres Music Festival.
Oh, cool.
So it's all outdoors. It's like a, you know, a chunk of bands. I think it's only like, it might only be like 1 day with camping. It's not like a, you know, multi-day, tons of bands. It's just like, all right, we got like 6 acts or however many throughout that Friday, and then there's camping, and then people can go home Saturday.
right. And I feel like there's going to be a fair amount of that kind of stuff, or I hope there is, especially like you said, as you know, people get vaccinated and things seem a little bit better and safer. I'm hoping that we do some stuff like that too. Part of the thing with Flex too is like, A, we have the good fortune, especially around Muskegon, to have a large following, and B, at its core, we're a party band.
Yeah.
Like the kind of point is get live and get up and dance. So if you're like asking people to stay away from each other and sit like Earth Radio has plenty of components of dance music, etc., but also you can enjoy your music as much in kind of an intellectual way, right? Like, it's still okay at a table. Like you can still sit. Where, and not to say what if people sitting down don't like my band or whatever, but but the very much the idea is like get out of your seat. So how do we feel about asking people to do that, you know?
Yeah, and if you know, the weddings I had last year with Blue Water Kings taught me anything, is that, you know, everyone's looking for any excuse to not have any rules. So like even the simplest of like, you know, we'd make a couple like announcements at the top of like, hey, just, you know, like keep a good distance from the bandstand. Like we have plenty of dance space. Like enjoy everything. It's outdoors, so you know it's a little bit more. Most of the weddings we had were outdoors, but then there's like some people who just like, you know, as soon as like a few drinks got in them, they're stumbling up to the singer, just be like, during the break, can you play? Like, or like we had one wedding where like people thought like, oh, it's break time. Now it's karaoke time. So some people were like
no.
singing along to Spotify with like, using all the microphones, playing guitars, touching instruments. And I was
Yep.
just like, this is
Nope.
not what
Nope.
this is for.
Nope. Run away.
It's like,
Run
this is,
away.
yeah. I'm like, if you want to do this, it's another 10 grand.
Exactly.
We're going to insure everything that the band owns.
And yeah. So those kinds of concerns have definitely been some of our discussions about, because people are starting to reach out, or things are starting to move around a little bit, but I don't want to contend with any of that.
Yeah, because it's hard to like, especially in Michigan, where like somehow we're number one in cases again, and it's like, is it just because we're really good at like, like the Michigan niceness translates to people not enforcing health protocols?
That could be like, that's interesting you say that though, because like going into gas stations or something, I see people without masks on or whatever, but I rarely have seen any staff member of any place be like, like,
Yeah.
oh,
Hey.
excuse me, could you maybe, as opposed to like, do it or get out.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, that sort of Midwest nice. Maybe that is a factor. I never really thought about it like that, but you might be onto something.
Because it's that like thought of like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes the Michigan niceness is like, oh, it's probably for, oh, he forgot it at home, or like, oh, I've left it in the car, and, he's only in here for 5 minutes, like,
yeah, all kinds of backpedaling and like excuse making for the other person.
Yeah, meanwhile they have some other thing going on, and it's like, I burned all my masks when this started. I'm not you're like, wait.
Right. Oh, never mind.
Sorry, I had to. But yeah, I'm glad that there's more of the rake beer shows that we did last year.
Mm-hmm.
We've set it up to do twice a month now.
Oh, cool.
Starting in May, and that's going to be, I feel like that's going to be good for the band. Not just, it's like, oh, we have gigs, but like it's another way to just like, we get, I think the cap was like 40 people. We know they're there to enjoy the music and hang out and have a good time and respect other people. And then we can just like have it as our own little playground of like, oh, let's throw this thing at it, or we wrote this tune, here's a demo, like, what do you guys think? Like, just a laboratory, but
a little more
show.
like a little more residency style, where you can just work out ideas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that's been fun with the listening room to have, like, I rotate 2 different trios, and each one, there's some shared like in some of this, the jazz standards, but it's a different, like, like with normal mode, it's like, oh, we have our catalog of tunes that we've written and recorded, and then we also have, other specific covers of like, like we've been doing like Heart-Shaped Box and Message in a Bottle, and some Radiohead and Tom York covers, and then when I play with like Madison and John Muir Cotton, it's like, okay, we can pull out, Actual Proof, or some of the, more difficult fusion-y tunes. And yeah, I'm hoping with the Earth Radio stuff, especially since we'll do the same thing of like, there's going to be yoga. Dan is going to do the yoga, and
like same format you did before.
Yeah, same format, and yeah, so that's going to be
nice,
just great.
I've never really experienced much of that, like ongoing performance, like residency type thing like that. That seems like it would, well, I say that we did run an open mic / jam at the West Side here in Muskegon for like a year and a half, but it's been 5 or 6 years since we were doing that. But Yeah, I want that back again. Or I think about the number of people I met in those days, or all of the weirdness that happened, like good musical weirdness that happened because of that consistent Wednesday night free for all, you know?
Right. Yeah, just having kind of a space to just like, the community gets together. I witnessed that at like, you know, the founders open mics that I would work, and
Mhm.
just seeing like the same people showing up and then like meeting and introducing like, and and knowing that, most weeks, until he got a little bit, savvier with like, oh, if I wait, then more people will
Yeah.
like, I'll come in and more people will be hype. With like, the five doing his uh like somehow winning, having like these middle-aged like businessmen who are finishing up
Right.
dinner. They're
Right.
like, they're sticking around to be like, what is that, like this
Yeah.
dude who's doing like screaming like industrial hip hop
Right. Right.
with his wife, and
Yeah.
like, and you're just like, kind of like, whoa. And all his stuff's about psychedelics, so
And there's something interesting about doing that kind of like labbing with an audience too, I think.
yep.
Um that's different from just doing it in a rehearsal space or whatever. Like some real-time feedback, or even just the like the reality of performing, like don't stop. Like,
Right.
oh, you're improvising and it went off the rails a little bit, like don't stop.
Keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Find your way back.
Yeah, just like I I was, I think it was when I was talking to Adam Parada for my other podcast. I talked about like, it's like you just got to get used to improvising. Like it's kind of like in uh or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the older one with
Sure.
Gene Wilder,
Yeah.
and like how when they see Willy Wonka come out and he does the cane gets stuck and he goes to fall but he tucks and rolls, and
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's like that's how you improvise. You're just like,
Yeah.
I'm falling and stuck the landing.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's totally right, man. Yeah.
But yeah, it's and you've been, I mean, I think of improvising, like you seem to do a lot of like, you know like prompts to or things to improvise in terms of like in your practice space, like, oh, I'm going to work on certain grooves, or I'm going to do a thing with synths or with
Yeah.
pads. And yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Some of that is improvisational and some of it isn't. Well, I don't it's some kind of gray squishy area in between.
Right.
Where like some of this stuff is just like turn on an arpeggiator and improvise. Because then it like feels musical and you can do it by yourself or whatever. Because like not playing a melody instrument, like yeah, you can improvise like fills and figures and stuff, but like
Yeah.
to make it feel more musical, having just some bleep bloops helps.
Right.
Um, and stuff with samples is like the drumming is semi improvised. And I guess the order in which I hit the pads is sort of improvised, but sort of not. It's like a lot of trial and error. And I'll do 5 or 6 takes and be like, oh, no. I got to get to that part earlier.
Right.
Or listen back and, oh, I hit that one too many times. Like only use that sample twice and then move on to the next one or whatever. But that stuff has been super fun, super duper fun. I don't know if it's truly improvisational, but it's tons of fun.
Yeah, I guess it's like, I don't know. It's like you get, it's like sometimes, a kid's going to go from the sandbox at their house to the sandbox at the playground, and the sandbox at the playground has the weird springy horse and like the fake construction gear and like, stuff that's like, oh, use this, try that, do this. And then they
Mhm.
get home and they just have their plastic shovel and they make a whole world with
Right.
just the shovel.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's accurate. That's so much of my approach over all of this kind of quarantine life has been like find ways to make playing every day interesting. Or
Mm-hmm.
how can I, and again, I don't really know how to play melody instruments. Like I know enough to be able to like have a conversation with a guitar player.
Yeah.
Like I know the difference between a major chord and a minor chord, but I can't like play a synthesizer. Like I don't have like the like hand facility for it. But arpeggiators are great. Or like just whatever I can do with the tools around me to like make a whole song and just play a drum set
Right.
has
Yeah. And
been the whole interesting kind of ongoing experiment.
yeah, well, and it's like it shows too that you don't, you know, I feel like there's people who fall into the gear trap, and they're like, if I just had this thing, then I would start doing this thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
what's in your room? What freeware can you find on your laptop?
Mm-hmm.
Like get started with those things, because it's all building, then you get later on you get the cool piece of gear that's like, oh, it's just like this thing I've been using for 5 years, but like it
Exactly.
does these things. And
Yeah, man. And I really I mean, I guess a year now, it has been like I went from making videos just with an iPhone. Like, and it's the only microphone is the microphone in the phone. And that's all it is, right? Just set my phone up and play drums.
right.
And little by little, like I got EAD10. It's like a kick drum trigger and like a microphone.
Oh yeah.
That's a pretty cool and kind of single, this like module thing.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so, and that has like some weird app that you can connect with, and you can run a cable out into an iPhone.
Oh.
But like that was kind of clunky, and the software, the app kind of sucks. So then it turned into I got a Roland Go mixer,
Oh yep.
so you can just run like any quarter-inch into that, and USB to Lightning. It'll take over your phone's audio source. And then I got another mixer as I got a different computer. So like, okay, then now instead of just the E8010, maybe it's that and an overhead. Or now I
Right.
can run a synth into the mixer that goes to the Go mixer, and like just little by little by little, from no recording gear at all to like one pretty basic thing, and then a little bit better way of using that. And then like that's like the PG series cheapest kick drum mic in the world
Yeah.
that I got for free, 8 years ago or whatever. But hey, it's a microphone.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so instead of worrying about like needing some ribbon mic condenser overhead, like no, use a 57 because I have one.
Yeah. I think of like, like Lewis Cole recordings from like a decade ago, and they're all like with that like blue snowball USB mic. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
just like plopping that in front of a drum set, or plopping that for vocals, or
Mm-hmm.
like it's all, he's like, well, I got this. And then him being, like however he learned mixing and stuff, he just, those recordings still sound cool because they have that attention of like, oh well, let me just, create little spaces and little moments in the
Right.
arrangements. And but yeah, it's like I it I've seen people, that they get all the gear, and then they haven't learned anything about like signal flow, or like,
Right. Right.
any way of how to plug in anything, and they're just, they just have boxes of stuff that are like
Yep.
unused.
And it goes like I understand kind of both sides of it. Like on one hand, I'm a pretty firm believer in that just like use whatever you have to make whatever you can, right? Like don't worry too much. Um, I don't know if you get this as much. Drummer land, lot of gear talk. A lot of gear talk about, oh, just I need a different ride cymbal. I need a new kick pedal. I need these shells or that, whatever. And it's like, if you have drums, play them. Like
Just hit
you
them.
could practice on cardboard boxes and you'll still get better.
Yeah.
But I also kind of understand the other side of it too, where like sort of on a whim, I got this particular mixer. And in doing so, I had to learn things about how to use it, or even like synthesizer stuff where I'm barely scratching the surface, but like I know more now about ASDR than I did a year ago.
Right.
And it's because I bought a thing I didn't know how to use and didn't really need. But I guess the point is actually using it.
Yeah.
You know, and not just amassing the objects to say you have them, and then never actually using them.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the reason I got the office at Third Coast was to like, you know, it's a whole place where I can like try different mics, try different
access, man, access.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't need to spend thousands of dollars. They already spent thousands of dollars.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I gotta say too, it's funny. One of the things I haven't really learned anything about is like being an engineer. So I have to. So like on one hand, like making this sample stuff is a ton of work in Logic, as far as actually capturing samples and chopping and doing some time stretching and getting rid of weird like bad cut noise and all that kind of stuff. But because I don't want to edit video and I don't want to and because my like drum recording setup is so ramshackle, all of the quote mixing is on the objects.
Right.
I'm like never like in a DAW with an EQ or a compressor or anything. It's like it all just runs into my phone. And then I like play the video back and go, well, kick drum's too loud, and like turn a few knobs and try again. It's like really the only way I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Weird. Well, and I that reminds me of I saw an Instagram clip of this vocalist, what's her name? Schertenlieb, I think is her artist name or her name or group name. But she was talking about how like, you know, like the placement of where you place your voice is like a way of thinking about EQ. And she was just demonstrating like, oh, I'm going to sing the same line only in the like placing it further back so it sounds darker versus more forward. And then she describes how she like used the flip of the back to front to kind of like almost feel like an EQ sweep where the clarity gets a little bit better and it's brighter by the end of the phrase. And it's like, that's fascinating. You could just like play your instrument and think about register and dynamics and tunings and like what you're hitting the drums with, or it's
yeah. I've had some fun. It's you can see it way back there. Like it's an old 28-inch marching drum.
Oh yeah.
But it's interesting. I've been experimenting with just putting it in front of another bass drum, so you don't ever actually strike it, but just every time you hit the bass drum with a pedal on it, that giant one rumbles. So that's been, so it's like some weird like reverb thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I see like, there's this dude who I think Mike Portnoy is going to give a kit to because he lives in like, I think he lives in like the Southeast Asia or something. And he's like, he has a smartphone and he'll just, record these covers of like Dream Theater songs, but it's like all on like a homemade kit and like a snare drum he found that's like, been fixed up with whatever he had in the house. And it's still like, oh, he's got like the, it's its own sound. Cause it's like a piece together found half constructed kit, but then it's still, thinking of the principles of like, oh, the drum size, the material being used. Sure. And I've seen like other, initiatives of like trying to make like these kind of recycled instruments where it's like, oh, we can't, ship a bunch of guitars here, but we have this big scrap heap that we're trying to figure out how to reduce. So let's just make a bunch of,
Whether
different
it's cigar box style guitars or whatever. Yeah.
just like let's get some kids some these instruments, so there's at least some sort of music happening, and it's it's got its own sound. And
Oh man, when you see those videos of like the truly DIY kind of drum kits, buckets and boxes and whatever, people use bike sprockets for hi-hats.
oh yeah, yep.
If that's not an argument for you don't need a $10,000 DW kit, you know what I mean? Like if you need to make a case for like play whatever you have.
Like, yeah, literally whatever's around you, like turn it, like put a kick pedal against your bed and get some pillows.
You can do something.
Yeah. Well, and for me it was like, the piano I had growing up when I was taking lessons was this, really big, bulky upright that the only reason why we were able to get it was because someone was like just wheeling it out to the street, so it hadn't been like sitting there getting weather damaged or anything. And then our neighbor had a truck, so we could get the piano to our house.
Right.
And and it was tuned. Some of the keys I think were chipped. It definitely was like an older piano, but it still was like it's in tune enough where I could play it. It didn't cost anyone anything.
Right. And if it works, man, it works.
Yeah. It's just,
and that's not to say that good gear isn't cool.
Right.
Or that there isn't all like we're both plenty gear nerds. We both have plenty of expensive shit. You know what I mean? Like I can't truly like plant my feet in. Play whatever you got, it's fine, because what I spend half my money on gear.
Yeah.
but it's a mentality thing, I guess, about if you're like putting off performing or recording or writing or practicing because you don't have XYZ, like that's when it's a issue. Or you and I maybe were talking about this. I'm trying to I like have been bringing this up more and more because I want to remember it. We joke about the dentist rig. It's the whatever, the big city lawyer with the pre-distressed anniversary edition Stratocaster that he doesn't know how to play but spent 10 grand on or whatever.
Right. Yes.
I don't remember who is saying it, but we owe those people a lot. They keep the industry in business. Like all those people with 20-piece DWs in their basements that have never played a show, they're the reason DW's in business, so I can get a kick pedal when I need one.
Yeah.
Like thanks rich guys that don't actually play your instruments.
Yeah, thanks for buying like thousands of dollars like Yamaha full-size grand pianos that are like custom tailored in a certain color to match the living room furniture.
Exactly.
Like like thanks.
Yep thanks to them, so that we humble working folks can still get gear.
Yeah, just because there is a dude on, I think Wieringa showed me this. There's this guy on YouTube who fits that description of like, what does he do? I don't know. He just has money and he buys all of the it's like, this was one of the random 5-necked guitars that like Cheap Trick used, or like this is a a weird like one-off from a company who made it and it's one of like 3 copies or something.
Yep.
All these, and then he like goes to play it and you're like, all right, I could see you playing in a band as the lead player, because I don't really hear any rhythm chops, and
sure.
It's with the coworkers that work in your department, and you go to the bar and it's like open band night type thing, and it's like that's fine.
All well and good, man. Takes all types, right?
Yeah, it's like that's what, like, don't think that you're, Kiss, or like, I'm a rock star. It's like you could feel that way, but there there's that fine line of like, you don't want to be mean to someone, but you also like, if they're not living in some sort of like grounded reality, sometimes you got to be like, hey, you're close, or
Right.
hey, maybe like
Right.
maybe you got to practice a little bit, or like maybe you got
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I mean, and that wanders into all kinds of like wacky psychology, Dunning-Kruger, you don't even know enough to know that you don't know anything.
Right. Yeah. You think like, I did it. I got this. I do the moves. I know I copied, the windmill from the Who or something, and that's
Power
it.
slide, man. It's all about that power slide.
Yeah. It's like, not knowing enough to know that you don't know enough is definitely, it could definitely happen with, I feel like it's with, it's people, some people have, they just have the fantasy of it and it's fine. And then other people are kind of stubborn about like, addressing like, hey, this is why, like, this sounds this way, and this is why your playing sounds this way. So, like, I don't run into this often with pianists, but like, sometimes I'll just have to remind people. It's like a younger, musicians, like, how do you get work, or like, how do you get, like, you sound so good on your instrument, like, how did this happen? It's like, well, I've been playing my instrument for 20 years.
Right.
Think about like, how long have you been walking? You're pretty good at walking now. It's like, that's about how long I've been playing an instrument.
Right. Well, and
And
that's I think you'd posted some meme not too long ago that was like, oh, I won't be good at it right away. No interest.
yeah.
It's like, oh man.
Like, just give it time. Like,
yeah.
you'll
Do you know who Dave Elich is?
maybe.
He's monstrous drummer. He was in Mars Volta for a little while. He's in Kill or Be Killed with Max Cavalera.
Oh, okay.
He did Anti-Mask with Omar. Anyways, just monster drummer. But he's also like a really, really, really incredible teacher. And he makes these t-shirts that just say, slow down, do it again. And it's like his joke is like that he made the shirts because he'd have all these private students. And he'd like be talking to him for a while, and he'd like leave the practice room and they're in there shedding away. And he comes back in, they're like, Dave, I can't do it. What should I do? Point at the front of the shirt, turn around and walk out of the room, point at the back of the shirt. Slow down, do it again. That's the only way, man.
There was like this dude, Harris Heller. He initially went to music school and then kind of found, a mix of like doing music, but also doing like live streaming and like stuff with gaming, stuff with, educating, like helping people with like, here's a new piece of gear. How is it improved from this, or how does it integrate into your setup? And I was, watching a lot of his videos last year because he had some good, like comparisons or like ways to tweak cheaper microphones to have them sound better, like for just, conference calls or things. And that's partially why I bought this mic, because it does do a lot for just being a USB mic. And he has a button on his Go XLR mixer that it's a audio clip, and all it does is like when someone says like, how do you get followers on Twitch? And then he clicks the button and it's like, to get followers on Twitch, you need to be advertising on the other platforms because Twitch doesn't have a built-in algorithm that pushes your content.
Right.
It just like hits that button. Is like, there it is. That's
same answer. It's the same answer.
Yeah, it still hasn't changed.
I mean, it's that ancient trope, right? Like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall?
Yeah.
It's always the same. Like,
yeah.
If you want to, if you want to do anything, you got to do it more than once.
Yeah, it's like the only way you could get there, and it's not meaning, like you can get there and it's always super meaningful because you've put in a ton of work. But then there's also the other side where it's like you can get there, like you could just have a lot of money and rent Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can buy the thing out, you can be on stage all you want.
Yeah, it's like it's like I don't know how meaningful it is that it's like it's like someone, I don't know. It's like renting a sports car or something. It's like you use it to drive by, like that's like a whole industry in like Miami is just renting supercars.
Oh my God. It's like a whole industry of like the ugly side of Instagram, dude. Like that's a real thing. Like it is a very real thing that people will like go rent jewelry and like sneak on to airfields to take photos in front of jets, like to create some illusion of their power. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, just
So
like
weird.
yeah, because it's like people just were the whole like, oh, it's in magazines it's like everything's airbrushed and like cropped and touched up, and then it's like, oh, that applies to like certain Instagram profiles and presentations, and now it's just like people can just plop themselves into anything and
Yeah.
rent something and
Get good enough at Photoshop, you can present yourself to be anywhere in the world.
it's like, I come here every day at the top of this mountain.
Yeah. It's a strange time to be alive, man. It really is.
Yeah.
I feel pretty weird. In fact, I felt kind of strange lately about some of the like video making or even just any of that kind of stuff. Like finding myself, especially whatever, spending a lot of time alone or spending a lot of time on the internet because quarantine.
Yep.
But you're thinking more and more about this sort of culture of like waving your arms, hoping people notice you.
Yep.
And that it kind of makes me feel weird, or I don't really know. I don't really have a very clear opinion on where I sit in that culture. You know what I mean? Like, it's good to make art. It's good to share stuff with people. It's good to try to inspire people and teach people and all that good stuff. But also, like, if I'm stressing out because I haven't made an Instagram video in 3 days, like that's not good for creativity.
Nope.
That's that's a dangerous path to wander down.
Yeah, it's and some like with, I think of TikTok where I don't think I've posted there in like over a month, and part of it is just because I haven't. It's like another platform to like.
Yep.
Like I even someone like Nick Thomasmo is not, on paper some exec would be like he's not really the target demographic for like the platform, but he's taken the time to like like, how do I use different filters, how do I like take little segments and edit them together, how do I have text, add audio, add all these different things, and it just helps him reach another like chunk of people who might follow him on that platform, and it's like, yeah, I haven't really sat down and figured out exactly what I want to do with it, but it's also like I feel like TikTok is weird that it rewards the like just truly random in some cases.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
It's like all these musicians who are like, they're taking the same like multicam, it's like 6 me's in a band and I'm the producer and we're all vibing in a track for 30 seconds, and it's like they take that video and they put it there and it it gets some traction, but someone who, I don't know, like the D'Amelios, like I don't know what they do, but they're the most, like Charlie D'Amelio has like 100 and some million followers on TikTok, and I don't know, she's like 17 and just dances and
yeah,
she's got millions of dollars.
That's all that stuff, man. I really go back and forth like between wanting to participate but I really do feel myself kind of participating at arm's length. Like even all this stuff, like I kind of described the video setup is entirely to make it all go into my phone in the camera app. And I just use the little touchscreen slider to chop out the minute. And that's it.
Yep.
Like I don't want to put the video into an editor and color correct it and buy a ring light and then mix the audio and then resync it back together and like do all this other stuff for the sake of a Instagram clip that I'm giving away for free. Like I could spend that time practicing. I could spend that time like learning how to use the synthesizer better. So I'm into it. I'm into capturing and sharing, but I have all this resistance to like looking at metrics or figuring out what time of day I'm supposed to do this, or reels do this and stories do this. TikTok does, like I make a video and I put it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and sometimes TikTok. It's the same one. I don't care.
Yeah.
Hey, I made this. Here it is. Watch it if you want. Don't if you don't. I don't look at how the hashtags perform. I like, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Like I understand it's also a business. And these are tools of the business and all that is important. I just personally have discovered a lot more and more my kind of general disdain for doing all that kind of stuff. But that's okay. Like I just kind of choose not to. And if that means I get whatever 100 views on a video instead of 600, okay, whatever.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. It's also that thing of like, it's weird because like the part of the incentive of like me to create a Patreon, part of it was like to filter things creatively through a thing and like and then people can support me there, but and also have another way of like here's a way you can hire me to do a recording, but then you also get to sample content for a month and check out things. But then it's also just seeing the people who like they have like I don't know, like the comedian, what's his name, Tim Dillon.
I don't know if I'm familiar, but sure.
He's one of those dudes that's like he has such an interesting, like his life is just like, so he's a comedian and he just has these interesting stories. He's this like 300 some pound gay Long Islander who like lives out in Austin, Texas now, and he it's him and a producer, and I think they have like a couple managers that they hire, but they're like the fourth largest comedy show on Patreon. They have like 20 some thousand patrons, and the only two tiers are $5 and $20, and that's
a lot of money.
It's like $100 and some $1,000 a month, 120 some $1,000 a month,
right?
And it's like, okay, with that kind of money, he can curate, like he can do the things he wants to do. He can be as mobile as he needs to be. He can, fund and produce, like he could bankroll like a short film or something with that kind of money, or he could, hire a team to help produce like produce something, even though a lot of what he does is very like low budget, just playing off of comedy and like the editing. And then the podcasting, just him ranting about things or talking to other comedians.
And some folks are just really kind of built for that, or the rise of TikTok and whatever, even like Instagram story kind of stuff, or even just like talking to your phone. Some people are really great at that stuff. I don't feel like I'm good at that, or I'm self-conscious about doing that, so I don't. You know what I mean? Like, there's a video of me playing drums, but it's not a video of me talking about playing drums.
Right. Well, and with Tim, it's like he made so many mistakes of like, well, not mistakes, like, well, I guess, yeah, some of them were saying, like, he talks about, like, how, he was a child actor, got some slots on Sesame Street, did some, like, touring musicals, and then at 13, he kind of aged out of the, like, like, oh, an adorable child to, do acting.
Right.
And and then he just kind of, like, spent a few years, like, you know, just uh just goofing around with friends, but then also getting addicted to cocaine and spending time with, like,
Right.
random characters around New York. And then he he argues that, like, he's like, I got into real estate mainly because I still was addicted to cocaine. And he did real estate up until, like, the housing market burst in 2008. And then, like, you know, after that, ruined his credit because he sold himself a subprime mortgage, ruined his, like, any sort of, like, have any sort of normalcy of, like, renting property or, like,
Sure.
getting a job in certain aspects. So then he spent, a few years as a tour bus driver, and that was where he would kind of practice his stand up for the shows he'd do at night, because he would just riff about, like, like passing a skyscraper and being like, see this property, it's this penthouse is owned by a Chinese fertilizer magnate, and he doesn't live there, and that's why all the rent's going up.
All right.
and and then he spent four of those, like, 10 years of comedy, like, four of them were with a podcast. And yeah, only in, like, the last 2 years is he really, like, found his, like, he spent some time in LA, met a lot
Yep.
of the people doing the comedy podcast scene. And then, yeah, so there's no, like,
It's certainly not overnight success by any means.
yeah, it's not, it's like, it's an example of, like, it's not overnight. He made a ton of mistakes. Um, he's been sober also for 10 years. So that was part of, I guess, what helped. But
Sure.
he it's an example of, like, there's no, in a creative field, there's not, like, any sort of, like, well, I'm going to start here at an entry level job in the company, and then I'll work my way up to middle
Yeah.
management, and then I'll work my way up to, there's no,
Yeah.
like, the ladder is, it's more of like a, I don't know, like,
Maze.
yeah, it's like a child's drawing of, like, a city plan,
Yeah.
or like city planning or something.
Yeah. And I think those kinds of stories are inspiring in a lot of ways, because it's like, try stuff out, kind of
Yep.
do what you like and experiment and explore, and you'll kind of know what works or what feels right or what other people respond to or any of that kind of stuff,
Yeah. And really, in, like, only within the last, you know, like, I'd say maybe in the last year. It's weird, like, because I've been thinking of, like, how I put myself as an artistic brand or something, or, like, how do
Right.
I market
I
what I
also
do?
I hate the idea of, but you're your own brand. Like, no,
You're
you're
your
a human
own.
being. Like, you're a human being. You're not a brand. Brands are what you burn cows with.
Yeah, that's a brand. That's well, it's, yeah, it's like, how do I present myself to someone who has no idea what I do?
Yeah.
And a lot of musicians know what I do only because I've, spent the last
You've
few
been
years
doing
in
it.
schools and playing, and yeah. And then now it's like, with the public, it's it's setting up more of those, like, you know, like, oh, you might find my website, you might find my Patreon, my YouTube channel, my Instagram, my face, like,
Mhm.
just getting these little nets, and then in the nets putting out little bits of, like, maybe there's, like, oh, I liked that reel on Instagram. Like, I don't know, like, I think of someone like Spice Adams, who, he was a pro football player, and he had this audience of pro football enthusiasts because he played for, like, four different teams over his career.
Sure.
And now he just does, like, comedy, and it's like,
Yeah.
it's great. And, I'm sure some people miss the, like, sports stuff. He still posts sports related things here and there, but it's like, he didn't go, like, well, how will this affect my fan base of
Yeah,
people who
man.
liked my career. It's like, nope, I just want to have fun doing, I feel like half of his like old head characters are just so that he can buy like really nice like sets of clothes.
Sure.
He's got a closet full of like, oh, I have an all yellow ensemble suit with a hat. I have an all maroon, all purple.
Yeah.
Just,
But it's like what
yeah.
people like is that he's being himself, right? Like
Mhm.
what people actually gravitate toward is authenticity
Yeah.
and just being like, and I feel like the farther we try to maximize the algorithm or decode what somebody else wants to see, like the farther we're getting away from our own personalities and ideas and stuff, And
Yeah.
it's not to say that you don't have to at least sort of participate. Like if you want to use a platform, like that platform has a format or a length or a method of uploading or whatever. But I don't know, man. I have a lot of resistance to commerce in general.
Yeah.
I think I don't really know why. It's just in my bones.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'm trying to figure out is just like, how do I keep doing a thing and then the thing increases my income
Yeah,
so that I
exactly.
can like afford some of some of the things that are like, I don't
like
know.
food and synthesizers.
Yeah, food, synthesizers, and all the all the ear candy and the real candy.
Yep.
How do I get all of
Yep. Up that candy budget.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, I I don't know if I'd ever want like, it's not like fame obviously that's driving understanding platforms, but I see, I'm always paying attention to like how, like recently I was thinking about like bad baby the like just like the arc of her life from like 13 to 18 is like so like
only 21st century, man. That's like only happening in this timeline.
So like it's just like, oh yeah, that girl who like threatened to fight the audience on Dr. Phil is a multi-platinum recording artist now. You're like, wait, how did that happen? How did we get here?
Spectacle, man. That's how.
Yeah, it's like, it's like she's in her own ways the version of like, if you have an audience that supports what you do, you can kind of do whatever.
Yeah. And well, that's actually a really good parallel. Like if you have an audience that supports you, you can do what it is you want to do. And that's true kind of whether or not you have an audience for good reasons, I guess. or not even, I don't even want to say good reasons, like no value judgment, just
right.
That those reasons can be varied. And if people think you're funny, then great, give them funny. Or not give them funny, but continue to be your funny self and they will support you doing it. And if your MO is threatening people on Dr. Phil, like keep up that energy and people will stay behind you.
Yeah. Just the people who, I don't know. It's like, it's not as crazy as like, I think of like, like a Michael Jordan who's like, obviously known like superstar basketball player, has the business mogul part of being an NBA superstar.
Yeah.
But then, he was like, what if I went and played baseball? Or what if I went and golfed?
Yeah.
And just like, and people were like, he's not very good at baseball. It's like, well, what do you expect from a man who spent hours learning another sport? Like,
yeah. 40 years of basketball. Okay, baseball. All right, gotcha.
Yeah, it's just like it's always funny to have the critics who are, it's like, what did you think was gonna happen? Like, either he was gonna surprise you because he knew how to play baseball, or he was gonna meet your expectations of someone who's only played one sport.
Right.
It's like, I'm not, it's like if I were to, try and play like the flute. It's like, oh, I know how the mechanics look, and I know that they're how to kind of like make a sound, but I'm not gonna like. It's like, wow, he sounds so good on piano. Why doesn't he sound good on flute?
Like, well, it's a little different, just a little.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just like, yeah, people are gonna. That was another thing I realized recently is like, there's gonna be people who, they dig these kind of podcasts, they dig the format, or they dig, like, oh, it's nice to have like a longer form discussion avenue for like Michigan people.
Sure.
And there's going to be other people who want, the tight 1 hour block of like, the local spins on YCE, where it's like there's some live music, there's a little bit of an interview, there's some other pre-programmed songs and features, like something's a little bit more organized. And then some people, some people are going to have that like, oh, I have time for somehow, a 15-second reel on Instagram and a 3.5 hour Joe Rogan podcast where he's on DMT the whole time.
Yeah. And you can make those parallels exist across media, right? Some people like death metal. Some people like cool jazz. Some people like horror movies. Yep. Some people like Michael Bay action movies. Some people like slow plodding, Hitchcock movies or whatever.
Yeah.
And none of them are necessarily right or wrong. And it's good that people make so much different stuff, I guess. And I think it's really interesting to explore other bits of that kind of stuff, right? Like I like doing podcasts. I don't have my own, but I like doing it.
Right.
It's simply kind of because like, okay, cool. I make a bunch of music, and because I make music, I got into listening to kind of music related podcasts. Like I like having conversations. Oh, like, okay, those things sort of align. I think I'll try that out. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like, I don't know. I like death metal, but I don't really have any interest in playing it.
Right.
I guess. Yet. But like that's this year. Who knows, man? In 10 years, I might change my mind.
Yeah.
And that's all just good. It's all just part of this broad exploratory. You can make whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Like expectations be damned.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good spot to end our chat on.
It's been a little over an hour, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've and I know we'll have more chats in the future. But I realized that I booked my next thing is like, oh, I have to leave at like 1:30. So it's like,
yes. I still don't know too. My phone might die. My webcam phone.
Oh. Yeah, it's like it'll just go out at some point, and you're like, well,
turn it off.
Yeah, but you mentioned a bunch of bands and things people could probably find you doing. Where should people look for you?
Best way to find me on all things internet, MUXMIKE. I have the good fortune of having that handle on. That's my email, that's my Facebook and my Twitter and my Instagram, and that's everything. Mux Mike.
All of it.
All of it.
Awesome. And for people watching now, I didn't check to see if anyone's watching now or watching after the fact or listening. You can support the podcast at patreon.com/Dutcher Snedeker. You can, give $5, get the audio early with some other perks like a monthly newsletter with some sticker art that gets mailed out. I think this month is artwork from Brandon James from Jack and the Bear, and it's going to be like a old school retro cartoony looking thing that he does. And you can also support the podcast. You can share it, like it, all the things you know how to do already.
Yeah.
And I just found out that I distribute through Anchor.fm, which people will have heard an ad at the top of the show. And there's a way for direct listener donations. So if you don't want anything and you just want to throw money at it, there's an option to do that through Anchor.fm. But yeah, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah. Always nice to chat.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll, I don't know, figure out some way to, I don't know, if it's not a show, I'm sure I'll be in Muskegon at some point and see you around.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Back to work for me.
Yeah. See ya.